What's happening, guys, and welcome back to Sliced. Today we are doing something different, but first, just peep the new apron. What do you think? Let me know what you think in the comments below. But yeah, I often get told that we don't do enough sweet stuff on Sliced, so today we're switching up a little bit from our regular series and we're doing up some cinnamon rolls. Really simple. I've adapted the recipe from Joshua Wiseman. I'll leave the recipe in the description below. Let's get right into it.
Right, so like most baking recipes, this starts off with a very large bowl. I'm going to be making enough mixture for 2 trays of chai buns, or around 24 of these. That's because I like to give away a bit extra to like a friend or a family member, so I recommend when you're baking you always try and make a bit extra. But if you just want to make 1 tray, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to use 1.2 kilos of plain flour, mixing it in with 200 grams of granulated sugar and 12 grams, or about 2 teaspoons of sea salt. We're just going to mix that in with our hand. Don't worry, my hand's washed. No, it isn't. And we're just going to combine that until it's nice and mixed. After which we're going to add in 170 grams of softened butter or margarine. I'm using margarine purely because I totally forgot to leave the butter out to soften. Both of them work absolutely fine, so you go ahead and do that. Also, if you're making these dairy free, you can use margarine and dairy free milk, so that makes it quite easy. And I'm just going to mix it in using a dough hook attachment on my stand mixer. To be honest, if you don't have one of these, absolutely fine. Just make them like you'd make scones by mixing them in with your fingers, rubbing the flour and butter together to make that sort of breadcrumb texture. While that's mixing, I'm going to leave it on a very low sort of setting. I'm going to add in my whole milk, 470 mils of it, into a jug. And I'm going to heat it up in the microwave for about 30 seconds up to a minute so that I can get to a lukewarm temperature. This is going to allow a really good environment for our yeast to bloom in. You'll know it's lukewarm when it's the same sort of temperature as your skin if you dip it in. And then I'm going to use the Snoop Dogg section of my scale to weigh up 14 grams. That's 14 grams of yeast. Using some instant yeast, and we're just going to add it to our milk and then mix it in so that it sort of starts to bloom. You can leave it for about 5 minutes and you should start to see the yeast bloom. It should have like a little bubbly effect, and it should smell like it's producing the ethanol, which is part of the reaction. You'll know it's ready when it has that. They call it a beery smell. I wouldn't know because I don't drink beer, but you know the smell. You know what I'm saying, right? It has a particular smell to it. Anyway, last part of our mix, we're using 4 whole eggs and 2 egg yolks. We're going to separate that into a bowl. So like the one-handed action right there. And then I'm going to slowly start adding the milk into our flour, butter and sugar mixture. And once the milk is completely added and incorporated in, make sure all that yeast is there as well. We're going to add our eggs in slowly until it's sort of formed a sort of cohesive ball. On a well-floured surface, we're going to tip it out. It's going to look quite wet, and to be honest, like in hindsight, I would have added a little bit less liquid. But that's absolutely fine. As you can see, very easy to rescue. Just roll it in a bit of flour, and you're just going to knead it so that it's nice and soft. It's an interesting dough, this, because there's not really many doughs like it. It's not so firm like a bread dough, because then that'll be too dry, but it's not so wet like a cake dough, because then it won't hold its shape. You want to go for a really nice in-between sort of state. We're going to let that rest for about an hour and a half, or until it's doubled in size. And while that's resting, we can go ahead and work on a few other things. I'm going to use some ricotta. See, a lot of people, when they're making an icing sugar mix, they just use icing sugar and milk. I don't want it to be too sickly sweet. I want that nice milkiness that you get from ricotta. So I'm going to use 250 grams or 1 tub of ricotta, adding it to 200 grams of icing sugar, or just, to be honest, however much you need. And the good thing about this is that it's not going to make it sickly sweet. It's going to have a really nice creamy, milky kind of flavor, which is really going to accentuate that flavor rather than take away from it and be too sweet. As you can see, I've mixed in a little bit of milk just to make it a nicer consistency, whisking it in so that it has that nice smooth texture. And then what we're going to do is grease up our tins. I'm using foil tins. It makes it a lot easier to just give out to people, so I often keep a bunch of these lying around, but to be honest, just use an all baking tin. But they're also really good, and obviously they're recyclable as well, so no harm done. I'm just going to use some more margarine or butter to kind of grease that up. Grease the sides as well so that nothing sticks to it. You can use your hands, make sure they're washed. Again, just to clarify, mine totally are not washed. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and make our sugar mixture. After pouring it into a bowl, I totally realized that the bowl was way too tiny, so I transferred it into something bigger. Using soft brown sugar, you can use dark, you can use light, whatever you want. I'm going to mix in a couple tablespoons of demerera sugar as well. This is going to add that nice sort of crunch and a nice layer of complexity, not just a standard sort of monotonous mix. We're going to add in our cinnamon. Now this is the point where I realized that it wasn't going to be cinnamon buns, because I realized that we didn't have enough cinnamon in the house. So what I did was I looked around and I found that we had 2 chai tea bags. I tried some amazing chai cakes that a family friend of mine made the other day, and I just thought, you know what, this might work. So I'm going to tear that up and pour it in. It's got like black tea, it's got cinnamon, ginger, cloves, cardamom, that kind of stuff inside it. I also put what was left of my cinnamon as well as a couple tablespoons of mixed spice into this mixture. I'm mixing it all together, and to be honest, this is what cooking is all about. Something doesn't work out, you just experiment, try something out, and you might make a really nice recipe. Like in this case, I didn't have the cinnamon. I tried something new based on what I tried at my family friend's house, and it tasted absolutely amazing. So once your dough has rested, you're going to divide it in half and just roll it out onto a floured surface. It doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle. As you can see, it's just sort of taking on that rectangular shape, and that's absolutely fine. What we're going to do is spread it on really nicely and evenly with some more margarine or softened butter. And it's really important that you cover it really well, because even though this seems like a lot of butter, it's important to make sure that your cinnamon buns don't go really dry. And we're going to mix on our brown sugar and spice mix onto that, making sure that you use your hand to sort of smooth it out really nicely and evenly, packing it into every single corner. This will ensure that you have a nice even mix, and that when someone bites into the cinnamon bun, well, cinnamon chai bun, they don't get just sort of like a pocket of random, you know, no sugar area. That didn't make sense. Anyway, you're going to pinch up the roll and roll it really tightly so that it doesn't break at all. Nice and carefully so that there's no holes. And once you've got this beautiful roll, we're going to chop it up. Now look here, I'm using a chef's knife, and as you can see, it's starting to pinch the roll. It's not really giving that nice shape. So you really want to use a bread knife. I just use that to show you the difference. Now if you look at the difference here by me using a serrated bread knife, just look at how it holds its shape. You can see the sort of rings a lot more better, they're more individual, and it's going to be so much better than just using like a regular sort of chef's knife. So don't go this far and then ruin the shape by using a chef's knife. Use a serrated knife if you have one. If you don't, it's not the end of the world, but I really recommend you do this. And I'm just going to turn them to the side and put them into a foil container, stack them up nicely. And what we're going to do, one second, let me just show you what this looks like. Just so beautiful and amazing. Just going to cover that and let it rest for about 30 minutes just so that it doubles in size. Well, not really doubles, but it's going to start to rise a bit. So don't pack them so close to each other they don't have space to move. Okay. I'm just going to put that to one side so it can rest. And I'm just going to do exactly the same thing with the other one. Oh my god, my surface is so messy. I don't think the table's ever been this messy before on a video, but yeah, we're going to do the same thing on the next one. And as you can see, I'm just leaving a nice amount of space between each one so that they have space to grow. I'm going to bake them for around 30 minutes in an oven at 190 degrees until they look nice and beautiful. Like, oh, one second, that looks a bit dark. There we go. Nice and beautiful, just like that. And I'm not going to admire them for too long, because what we're going to do is just really slap on that beautiful ricotta flavor. And you see, because ricotta has such a milky texture, it's really going to complement the tea that we've put inside that and really give off that nice sort of creamy chai type of flavor. They're really unique and interesting. They beat normal cinnamon buns any day. They're absolutely amazing. So I really recommend you guys go ahead and try this out. So send me your pictures on Instagram, and please follow me on my socials at slice_YT on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, oh my god, Facebook, TikTok. As you can see, the voiceover is just getting to me. Anyway, yeah, follow me on everything. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.